Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Film Snobbery Live. I am your host, back from Sundance and Slam Dance, back from Park City, Nic Baisley, and I am here joined tonight by my co-host, Mr. Jerry Cavallero. Jerry, say hi to the good persons that are out there.
Hello, persons, and welcome back, Nic.
Man, thank you. I am absolutely fried right now. I got in at like 1 a.m. last night. It's been nonstop. At the top of the show here, I really do want to put out a very public, very heartfelt thank you to the good folks at Film Threat, specifically Mark Bell for putting me up at the Film Threat condo at Sundance and Slam Dance. Also is acting kind of as my almost literally Sherpa up the mountain there at Park City. Giving me a wealth of tips from his experiences for the past many years that he has attended both festivals and at one point even worked for Slam Dance. So I really want to say thank you to Mark. It was very generous and very, very appreciated. I really had a great experience. One, I'm not eager to repeat immediately, but I figure maybe it's like childbirth, how it's been described, where like the pain, you kind of forget about it the next time, and then you go do it again, and I'm hoping that I've learned enough that next year I will prepare a little bit differently. But we've got some great stories we're going to share. If you guys haven't been keeping up with, I've actually been blogging every day from Sundance. You can check out our Sundance Slam Dance coverage at filmsnobbery.com/blog. You can check out our 5 days worth of coverage I put there. It's real informal, just covers everything that we pretty much did from my perspective and people we spoke to and stuff like that. Did have a great time, but it was really back-to-back work. We're going to get a little bit more into that a little bit later in the show. We actually have a very, very full show for you guys tonight, so I'll get right into it. Our first guest is a gentleman. He's a director. His movie is Bad is Bad. We're going to show you the trailer right now. When we come back, we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Kent Lamm. So you folks out there, stick around.
Sounds like you've had a nice life so far, George.
Mr. Freeman! What's up?
Hey. Hi, Mr. Freeman.
Hey, Shelly.
Hey, George.
Thing is, people only say the nice parts of their life stories.
So how long you gonna be?
Just have to swing by the restaurant. Hopefully I won't miss the first inning. Is Jack up yet?
Not yet.
Make sure he gets up soon. I'm putting him in at shortstop today.
Do you know him? No, I don't think so. Why?
He's been staring right at me.
You never hear about the bad things.
Hi, my name is George. What can I get you boys?
I think the bad things are much more interesting.
What the hell?
George, do I look familiar to you at all?
What are you talking about?
You come down to the suburbs and try and hide from the consequences?
You have the wrong house. I haven't done anything to you.
You think that we drove all the way from downtown just to go home?
What are you doing? No!
You're a bad person.
He's not a bad man.
Never thought I'd actually find you.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. May I welcome to the program Director Kent Lamm. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Me? I'm fighting a chest cold, but and I'm beyond exhausted, but I'm doing really well, sir. So let's talk a little bit about your getting right into it. Let's talk a little bit about your career here. You've this movie is your first feature, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
But you've done some shorts before. How did you prepare to make the jump from shorts to features? I mean, did you kind of use those as kind of test things? Have you gone ahead and done the circuit with them, or what's your tell us a little bit about your evolution as a filmmaker.
Well, for me, it kind of it started in middle school pretty much, where I just started making movies with some friends of mine, and a couple of the guys that I was making little movies with, I ended up continuing to make movies with, and they're actually my co-producers on Bad is Bad. So we kind of just kept working together and evolving, and eventually it got to the point where I think our sophomore year in college, we thought, okay, we should really try to make a feature. I think that'd be a good idea. And so we did make a short film that was kind of similar to Bad is Bad. We tried to make it, kind of reduce the variables as much as possible, so that by the time we started filming the feature, we'd kind of have a better idea of what we were going to be in for. So we ended up shooting on the 7D, so we bought a 7D to shoot this short on, and we shot it in the same location, which is this house where most of Bad is Bad takes place, so we could get a feel for it and how to light it and everything. And once we finished that, we just kept working on the script for the feature, and then we just went into it the next summer. We filmed it on the summer between our sophomore and junior year of college. So.
And where did you get the cast? Did you kind of hold formal auditions, or are these people that you've either worked with before or that you already knew?
It was a real mix. The two kids, Jesse and Ray, who are two out of the three main characters in the movie, they're also my co-producers, and they mostly act, and so that's a big part of writing the script, was trying to write a script that we could use mostly people that we already knew.
Mm-hmm.
So they were big. We knew they were going to be big characters. And then we had a couple more people that we already knew, but finding the dad, who's the other main character in the movie, who ended up being played by an actor named Bill Brock, that was probably the hardest thing to do. And what we did was we went to some local plays in Richmond, Virginia, which was where we shot it and where we're from. And we found Bill, and we talked to him after the show and exchanged info and sent some emails back and forth, and eventually he signed on. And then we found an actress through Craigslist, and then another actor was actually just like our assistant cameraman's dad, and he had zero acting experience, but we kind of had to rewrite the scene for him because it's a little harder to find actors out in Richmond than it is here in Los Angeles. So we just kind of rewrote it for him and shot it, making sure to have enough coverage so that we could kind of work around his takes and edit to make it look probably a lot better than it really was. And it turned out pretty good, and a lot of people actually think he's a real actor, but that was his first time on screen.
So where you had, you get your actors together, you already said you had a location, you'd already even gone ahead and, done some lighting work and all that kind of stuff to try to, really make the most of the shoot. Did you, what was, you would say, the biggest challenge about making the feature?
I think the biggest challenge, I think there were two. The first was just literally getting it off the ground, because there was a long time where we didn't have any of the cast members besides people that we already knew. We didn't have nearly enough money. I mean, the budget for the movie was only $6,000, but between three college students, it was still a big deal, and we raised it all ourselves. We didn't have any investors or any Kickstarter or anything like that, so we were just working part-time jobs, and luckily, it was pretty miraculous that the movie even got made, because we ended up winning 3 or 4 short film competitions and getting prizes. That went I think that made up almost half the budget for the movie right there. And then we found our DP over Craigslist, and we found the rest of our cast that we needed, and yeah, amazingly it got put together. And then after that, the second hurdle was we had kind of a weird post-production experience, because when we finished filming, I had to try to finish editing before I went back to school. I go to USC in Los Angeles, and we were filming, and I was editing back home in Richmond, so I had this really rushed editing experience, and this is also, my first time editing anything nearly on this magnitude, so I didn't really know what I was doing, I guess. And so I had what I thought was a final cut, which I'd work really fast to try to finish, and it ended up, I guess, not turning out that great. And but I didn't really realize, I wasn't sure at the time because I totally lost all my objectivity in regards to the movie. So.
And that's something that even we've talked about before in the past. I mean, I gave an entire panel pretty much about that at South by Southwest last year called "Your Baby Is Ugly," and about being able to be objective about your work. And no, I can definitely see that. Now, as far as so did you have anyone else take a pass at it afterwards and kind of fix your mistakes, or did you just walk away from it for a while?
Yeah, well, that's what happened. We showed some people, and the responses were kind of varied, but we could tell that it wasn't where it was supposed to be. So, I don't know. For a long time, we just kind of started thinking, well, maybe we just messed up here. Maybe this is just a big failure. And we kind of just stepped away from it for a while. I mean, we were still submitting to film fests, but wasn't really getting in anywhere. So it wasn't until about, literally 6 months later where I watched the movie again for the first time in months. And watching it, I just, realized how much I could cut from the movie and have it work so much better. And I just completely overhauled the entire movie and re-edited pretty much everything. And when I started showing people, the reaction was way better. And so that's the version that's the final cut now. Now,
you're one of those independent filmmakers that wears many, many hats. Obviously, you edited your work, you directed it, you wrote it. What would you say that you're the most comfortable with? Is it the writing? Is it being behind the camera? Is it being doing the post-production work? What would you say is your forte?
Well, at the time of making Bad is Bad, which was, I guess we filmed it, about a year and a half ago now. At that time, it was probably directing. That's directing and editing probably, or at least I thought. When we were writing it, it was our first feature that we wrote too, so it was a lot of trial and error and took a long time to write it. But now, we've written a bunch of scripts since then. Chris Fornatero and I, who's my co-producer and co-writer, and also plays Jesse in the movie. So I feel really comfortable writing now, actually. And I think it's writing and directing I feel a lot more comfortable with now.
Now, I have a... we were talking a little bit, for the audience who doesn't know, we were talking a little bit about your distribution plans, what you've done with the film since it's been out there, and you had mentioned to us that you actually decided to put it up online. And Jerry's going to go ahead and he's going to throw a link or two, hopefully, up in the chat room. But not only that, I wanted Jerry to actually go ahead and have a quick conversation with you, because it looks like you guys have something in common, which is you both decided to go ahead and put your films up online for free for a period of time. Jerry, I'm going to have you, for once, I guess, take over the conversation here and talk about, you can ask some questions of Kent about maybe his motivations for doing that, and maybe see if there are any similarities between both of your reasonings.
Okay.
Okay.
Just pulling me right into it.
Every time you think you're out, I just pull you back in.
And by that, you just dragged it out and are like, Jerry, I want you to have a conversation with him, and this is exactly what I want you to ask. And
yeah, well, pretty much do what I tell you, bitch.
Okay.
All right. Have at it.
So, Ken, what were your motivations behind putting your film online for free?
Well, this was right after we had finished the actual final cut of the movie. Just kind of had a meeting with the other producers, and we were talking about our options. And we had already spent a good chunk of change submitting to film fests. And by the way, that's a process that I really hate. It's probably my least favorite process of making a movie. But we already spent a lot of money. We were pretty much broke, and we were sick of just sitting on this movie and not having anybody see it. So we thought, well, you know what? It only cost us $6,000 to make the movie, which is, I mean, in movie terms, nothing. So, you know, why don't we just put it online for free? Because the worst thing that can happen is not a lot of people watch it, and that's it. The best thing that can happen is we can get a lot of exposure and hopefully build up, you know, some fans and make it a lot easier to crowdfund our next movie, or, you know, just get people interested, maybe get a little bit of press online. And so that's what we did, and it turned out great. We ended up getting, so far we've gotten like over 20,000 hits on Vimeo and 1,000 downloads, and we just put it on YouTube about a week or two ago. And yeah, I think it was a great decision.
Yeah,
CJ.
congrats on those hits, first of all. That was kind of the same reasoning I had behind why I put my film for free. However, it took me a couple of years. You guys did it as soon as you got a final cut. So that's kind of smart on your part. Especially for like a micro-budget film, you know, you don't really have that big of a loss. Plus, like you were saying, just submitting it to festivals and like distribution companies, like you got to pay to mail out the film and all the materials and stuff. And when you're submitting to festivals, you got to pay like $30 to $50 up to $100 for some festivals, and then you have to actually go to the festivals if you get in. It just gets really expensive. So
not to mention you have to wait months just to hear back, and in the meantime, you're really limited in who you can show the movie to. I mean, it pretty much has to be in person.
Yeah, that's one of the worst parts, the waiting. I lost a year on my film waiting, just submitting it to festivals. But I was very selective, and I was choosing the wrong festivals, and I waited a year before I even was like, okay, I'm just going to submit it to local festivals. And then I started getting into all these festivals and playing, and I was like, I should have done this first. I shouldn't have held out for the big one, which that's what so many filmmakers do, and they literally could lose a year just waiting to show your film after it's done.
Yep.
And that's really funny, even as someone who literally just came from two of the big festivals, there really are certain types of movies that play at those kinds of festivals. And if you don't fall into, I'd say, I don't want to say like certain genres or certain areas or whatever, I mean, it's really tough to get in on a blind submission. That also said, there wasn't one filmmaker I spoke to, at least on the Sundance side, that got in on a blind submission. There was not one. Everyone had either had set up press screenings with other people from Sundance, or had been there years prior, so that way they had kind of paved the road for this particular thing, or they had or they were just known quantities in the industry. So I mean, and that seemed specifically about what Sundance was all about. Is like, let's find all the people that make for good photos and good PR for our festival.
I don't think you can get into Sundance anymore from a blind. Like, wasn't there that person that said that in the 10 years they were programming Sundance, they've never gotten a feature that was a blind submission?
Right.
I actually have spoken to filmmakers that had stars in their films that paid and flew like the Sundance executives out, or went down there, put on a private screening, like wined and dined them, and still didn't even get in. So it's like, what are your odds? If people are spending thousands wining and dining like the Sundance Board, what are your odds of sending your subscription with your film like in the mail with a $55 check or whatever it is now?
Is Sundance still doing? I think it was last year or maybe the year before, they had a special program of movies that were made for really low budgets. Like I think it was less than $150,000 or something like that. Do they still do that this year, or have they stopped that?
They still had the Sundance Next, and they also had the New Frontiers, and those definitely got a lot more attention than they did last year. But it still was a very, it was still a very, as far as Sundance is concerned, it was still a very. The only word I can really use is it was a very snobby affair. I mean, everything I did was dictated by a publicist. I mean, we use FilmSnobbery as a term of, kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of playfulness. There was very evident, and not only from the films, and I won't say the filmmakers. A lot of the filmmakers were really awesome people, but definitely the audiences, and definitely the way that it seemed like that part of the festival was conducted. Slam Dance, on the other hand, felt really communal. Everyone looked like it was like everyone at Slam Dance looked like they were there to have fun, as well as be part of kind of the collective, as it were, whereas everyone at Sundance was there to network and work. You know what I mean? Like there were parties, but it was like it's a party if you're lucky enough to get in and you're on a list.
That's what I've heard. I mean, I honestly think that I don't know if I'll ever bother submitting anything to Sundance again, because you might as well just throw $50 or $70 down the toilet. I really think so. Unless Natalie Portman's like headlining your movie or something.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I tend to agree, and not saying that everything in Sundance was star-studded, but there were definitely qualities about the films that were there and the filmmakers that were there, whether it was experience, budget, whatever, that really dictated. You could tell immediately why they got accepted, and I mean, there's some certain festivals that are like that. You can tell how people got into them, for whether one way or another. Slam Dance, it seems like you have more of a shot, but I still feel that it's not, it's, and I stayed basically in a condo with, a bunch of the programmers and jurors. So, I mean, I can definitely attest to the fact that, they're watching and they are paying attention. And honestly, I was just as ready to dismiss Slam Dance as I was Sundance. But I got to tell you, after working more so with the Slam Dance filmmakers than the Sundance ones, or at least those are the people that I hung out with more. I'm willing to give them more of a pass at in terms of the whole Park City snobbiness, kind of celebrity crush type of environment that is. I would say for filmmakers out there, if you are still looking to submit to one of those two big festivals in Park City, submit to Slam Dance. You could still enjoy the entirety of Park City, get a Sundance pass, and go to the parties and meet people that way, if that's how you want to work and network. But we've got more tips and stuff for that later on in the show. Did you ever expect, and this is a question actually for both Jerry and Kent, and then maybe based on that question, maybe you two can have a quick discussion. Did either of you just put your movie online because you thought you were going to make any money on it?
No, not at all. Because when I put it on Vimeo, YouTube does have that AdSense thing where you can make a little. If you were to get like 1 million hits, then you can have your little ad pop up in there, and you might make $100 or something. But Vimeo doesn't have anything like that, and I just, my website doesn't have any ads or anything either. So I was really just trying to get exposure, and I didn't even have like a donate button or anything like that. So that wasn't really the intention at all. But I did just put it on YouTube and put the AdSense thing on there. So hopefully I can just make enough to pay to keep the website up and running.
Honestly, I mean, even with my own website, that's all I hope for is will the site make enough money to sustain itself? You know what I mean? So now that this is up online, you're free, I guess, to work on other projects. What's next for you?
Actually, I'm going to be shooting another really low-budget feature this summer out here in Los Angeles this time. And the good thing about having made Bad is Bad is that we've got 2 or 3 investors that are interested. I think between them and Kickstarter, raising the money isn't going to be nearly as big of a headache as it was for Bad is Bad. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Are you looking to work with some of the same people?
Yeah, we're going to have a couple of the same people, but it's going to be really different this time around because since we'll be out here in Los Angeles, we'll be using this movie's different from Bad is Bad in a lot of ways. It's going to have a very big cast where Bad is Bad only had about 5 people or so, and so we're taking lots of the cream of the crop from the USC theater school out here and some other people, and nice thing about filming out here is there's just no shortage of hungry actors and crew members to pick out and throw in the movie. So.
All right. Well, it sounds like you've definitely learned something going from one feature to the next, and that you've kind of, any lessons that were to be learned. It sounds like you were wise enough to at least pull away and examine them. So I definitely give you much credit for that, and I also want to give you much credit for coming on the show tonight and talking about your project. If someone wants to learn a little bit more about your project, where can they go?
Check out badisbad.com, and you can see the reviews, pictures, synopsis, trailer, featurette, and the whole movie. Or you can also go to our website, ogoodproductions.com, and find out more about us and our next projects.
And you're on Twitter as well, right?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I think it's Kent_Ogood, OHGOOD.
Like Kent Ogood.
Yeah.
That's right. See, we're gonna put a little flavor on it there for you. Just a little stink on the ball. It's all good. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope everyone gets an opportunity to watch Bad is Bad. It is up online. I'm definitely gonna check it out because that's kind of my job. It's kind of what I do. But hopefully I can get some sleep first. I want to thank you, Ken, for coming on, and I also want to thank you for I believe one of the reasons why you're here is you were a contributor to our Indiegogo campaign.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks for having me, and yeah, I definitely was glad to contribute and help you keep going. I mean, I think if more really independent filmmakers had more outlets like yourself, it would be a much better environment, and I think the film-going world would be able to catch wind of a lot of projects they wouldn't have ever heard of. So.
Every festival I go to, if I'm on a panel or if I'm around industry people, I always do my best to try to convince them to cover more independent films. And then they go, "Well, did you see the Independent Spirit Awards this year?" And I'm like, "Slow down, that's not independent." But we actually have a whole segment on that a little bit later on. Again, I do want to thank you again for Kent for the donation and keeping us going. And believe me, your donation made a big difference. There are things that were going on behind the scenes here that we're not even announced yet that are a direct result from everyone's generous contributions. I won't say that maybe we're not going to be hitting you up again sometime in the future, but rest assured that everything we do has been going from one step to the next step. So it's very, very appreciated, not only to you, Kent, but everyone out there in the audience.
All right, and we're looking forward to these new updates.
Oh yeah, it's coming. So, but thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Mr. Kent Lamm. Go on and click on the link here in the chat room. Go check out Bad is Bad. If you're not here in the chat room, you can go ahead and go to www.badisbad.com and find Mr. Kent on Twitter. Twitter.com/ I just killed it. Where was it? I had it right here. Jerry, save me.
Kent_Ogood.
You got it. Good, Jerry. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to play a little thing here from our sponsor, Indie Picks Unlimited. When we come back, we've got a very special segment from a good friend of ours, good friend of the show, something we don't generally cover, but there is a bit of crossover here. With the indie film and the mainstream film, we're going to cover a little bit of the Oscar nominations that just kind of came out with a very well-respected red carpet specialist, correspondent, actress, wonderful person, and turns out Massachusetts native, Kristyn Burtt. So we'll be right back with that coverage. Everyone stick around. And we're back. Our next guest is here to talk about the 2012 Oscar nominees, and we've got a great lineup of stuff to talk about. I've been looking forward to having her on the show for quite a while. She is a two-time award winner at this year's IAW TV Awards. You've seen her all over the red carpet and all over the web, for that matter. Here to talk about and gas bag with me, gossip, if you will, a little bit about these this year's Oscar nominees, Miss Kristyn Burtt. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing phenomenal. How's everything going in your world?
It's been a busy week, I will say that much.
The glitz and glamour of Hollywood. You've been right in the thick of it.
I have. I got up at 2:15 in the morning to go cover the Oscar nominations. That's what we call glamour.
So, you know, is it just about almost all press at that event, pretty much with the exception of the presenters?
Yeah, it actually is. It's media from everyone you recognize from Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood and the E! Channel to some are smaller media outlets and things like that. But they fill up the Samuel Goldwyn Theater. And the only celebrity that's there, it was Jennifer Lawrence, who was presenting alongside Academy President Tom Sherrick.
And how do those people look that early in the morning? I mean, if everyone got up as early as you did, and I'm sure you kind of glitched yourself up a little bit because you're in front of the camera, but did some of the, let's call them even more the online outlets or any of the people who are generally off camera looking a little haggard that day?
You'd be surprised. Everyone looks pretty good. I'm impressed with them because, it is really early in the morning. They feed us breakfast, so maybe that perks everyone up, the fact that you can get bacon at like 3:30 in the morning at the Academy. But everyone looked pretty sharp, so I was impressed.
Awesome. Now, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's start it at the top. The one that I think a lot of people were really. Well, I would say angry, but really it was very controversial. Some people thought that it was really well deserved. Some other. Let's talk about the Best Picture nominees for this year. For those of you guys out there who don't know who was nominated, I'll give you the quick rundown just because I happen to have it in front of me. The Artist, The Descendants, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help, Hugo, Midnight in Paris, Moneyball, The Tree of Life, and Warhorse. Now, let me ask you, Kristyn, what was your... If you had to pick any of those as being your pick for the Best Picture of the year, what would you pick?
Hands down, The Artist. To me, that was probably the one that was the most well thought out from beginning to end on so many different levels, including story and music and the acting, the cinematography. I mean, it's beautiful. And it's different. It's unique. Obviously, the whole silent genre is completely different to us in 2012. So I think overall that's the one that's going to win.
And it's funny because that one was more verbally controversial within the audience community, not necessarily like our community of people, critics, and stuff like that, because you had people literally walking out asking for their money back because this movie, they were like, it's a silent movie. But the funny part is like, weren't they all silent movies? Not more than less than 100 years ago. I mean, I think you can put up with a good hour and a half of what I would consider to be classical cinema.
I mean, it was stunning, and I think that the score is incredible the way it tells the story. So it's not like it was completely silent. You were listening to music,
right.
And there's probably about 90 seconds of sound altogether otherwise. But for people asking for their money back, I sit there and think they must like Transformers 4 as their favorite movie last year.
Oy. Where now one I'll admit that I definitely agree would be good in this particular category, the Best Picture category, but was also on another nomination list this year was The Descendants, because it was also on the Independent Spirit Awards list. And I didn't really agree with that. I don't think a George Clooney movie is within, regardless of budget, is really within the independent spirit. You know what I mean? It just feels wrong. But, you saw it. What did you think of the movie?
I'm a huge Alexander Payne fan. I mean, I cannot get enough of Election or Sideways. I can watch those over and over without getting sick of them. The Descendants, I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a great movie. And, going back to your point of George Clooney and the Independent Spirit Awards, yeah, anytime you have Clooney, I mean, that's just rich and elegant and big budget to me, just because he's George Clooney. I mean, he's one of our, big sort of box office matinee idol kind of, guys that we have in 2012. So you know, it wasn't my favorite performance out of George Clooney. I do think that he showed a softer side to himself, and that's why he is nominated.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's look at the two heavy hitters this year in terms of the directors. The Hugo, directed by Scorsese, and you had Warhorse, Spielberg. You know, and Warhorse being that they're both relatively new to the cinema. Warhorse, though, specifically just came out. Did that feel at all like kind of like a last-minute addition because it's Spielberg and they felt that, oh, we should nominate him for something? Or did you have an opinion at all on you know, either Hugo or Warhorse?
You know, the Hugo, all the nominations, I mean, it tops the list with 11 nominations in total. I do think it's well-deserved. I think it's one of Scorsese's most well-executed films that he's ever done. Warhorse, I've seen the Broadway show. That to me was a little bit better than what I saw on the screen, and I kind of felt like we're not going to give Spielberg Tintin in the animated category, so we're going to give him Warhorse, which to me was a really strange trade-off.
And you know, as far as the animated category is concerned, it seems like a lot of the animated CG movies really seem to be ignored in that animated category. Polar Express, Tintin, was Fantastic Mr. Fox, you know, kind of just going back. You know, do you feel that they should be revising how those nominations are actually done for animation, being that, you know, CG is a kind of a form of animation? Yeah,
and, you know, we may in the future where we have to divide categories, because it may get to a certain point where you look and think, you know, there's hand-drawn and then there's CG, and how do you, you know, compare the two? And that's as technology develops and we see more and more animated films, because, you know, we have a lot of animated films this year, and the slate for next year and the year after, I mean, I've seen Pixar's, and alone, their slate is huge. So I think at some point the Academy may have to go back and revise some of the categories or some of the rules.
Now, as far as you have to see all of these movies, or you choose to see all of these movies, because you want to stay well informed, you want to stay up on everything. I totally feel out of my element as far as talking about all these mainstream movies, because I cover almost exclusively independent films, and it's great to have someone like yourself who's out there, you know, watching all of these things for us, so you can school me. So what is that like, though, to have to go and see that many movies?
It's a lot. I honestly spent my entire December, I pretty much went to one or two films a day. Mm-hmm. And you kind of know by December what at least is going to be in the mix in terms of award season. And I know when I'm getting a little bit of like award season fatigue, because I start checking the running times, and if it's over 2 hours, I'm like, ah.
Now, and where you go see these in the theater, right? Do you not get a lot of screeners?
I do a little bit of both, but in the month of December, it's a lot of the theaters offer complimentary tickets to press and to voting members of the different guilds, so I utilize that. The screeners seem to arrive post-nominations, so they arrive en masse in my mailbox, and sometimes I'm like, oh, seen that one, seen that one, seen that one. So it's usually the smaller films. If they do send screeners out, it's nice, because oftentimes you miss them, and, you know, there's always one movie that kind of sneaks in there, and you're like, I have not seen that yet.
And speaking of movies that are sneaking in there, let's take a moment to address Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close.
Yeah, can I tell you my nickname for it?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell the audience.
Yeah, I'll be very honest. It's extremely long and incredibly annoying.
There you go. And yeah, and that just, they really snuck it in there, even on the televised you know, kind of portion of the nomination ceremony. I was watching it online. I just happened to catch the tail end of it, literally just the Best Picture. I had to follow up with all the other categories later on in the day through Twitter, Facebook, but it was like they had the two presenters framed up. For those of you guys out there who didn't see it, you know, you were there. So, but you know, they had the two presenters kind of framed up in the center, and then, you know, they were putting basically the titles of the different films that were nominated alongside each side of them. So you had, you know, 4 on one side, 4 on another, and then all of a sudden, right at the top, they sneak in Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and it almost felt to me, even by like the slight pause that was there from the presenters, it's almost like they didn't even see that popping up on the teleprompter.
It was amazing being in the theater when that was announced. There was a small section of people in the center part of the theater that burst out into applause, so I don't know if they had any ties to the film, even though the press is anything but, neutral when it comes to all these nominations. I'll tell you, people gasped and ooh and ah and cheer and clap, and that one, it was a very weird moment because there were a lot of groans at the same time. There was a lot of applause, and I think that this movie is very divisive. Some people really like it, and some people can't stand it, like me.
Yeah, no, incredibly, extremely loud and incredibly close was like the groan heard round the net, right as soon it was pretty much announced, and that is such a. It was such a weird kind of thing to see that, because it seems like a lot of audience members that went to see it really liked it, but the blogosphere and the 140 character critics on Twitter and stuff like that really seem to almost universally hate it, which is funny because of if you want to look at it as like a 9/11 movie, there are some that you watch that some people I think feel obligated to like. As a sense of patriotism, and this was, I guess maybe enough time has passed where we're like, it's okay, it's got Tom Hanks and it's got Sandra Bullock in it, but it's just not a good movie.
It's not, and I felt incredibly manipulated, and I think that as an audience member, not even just a member of the press, that frustrates me about movies, because I feel like I can see the screenwriter on the page saying, like, this is where the audience is going to cry. And then I also felt that, Thomas Horn, the kid that was in the movie, felt that he was incredibly coached in a lot of the more emotional scenes. He was great as, the sort of the quirky, nerdy, highly intelligent kid, because he is in real life.
Right.
The emotional scenes, it was driving me bananas as an audience member.
So, it's very easy to be just an audience member. What made you want to start doing these red carpets and then taking on the responsibility of informing yourself to this degree? How did you get started working with working these things?
I was always doing hosting and things like that, and I had worked a lot in home shopping, believe it or not. And I was a home shopping host selling you cuckoo clocks at 2 in the morning. But when I was working out in LA, I've always had a fascination with entertainment. I've always been a film buff and always been an Oscar fan. And in 2005, I had the opportunity to do some media work over at the Kodak Theater, and part of the job involved knowing everything about the Oscar, how much it weighed and what it was made out of, and the whole procedure of Oscar night. And then from there, I was able to do some media work for the Academy with their Meet the Oscars display that they did in Los Angeles for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it just kind of grew into doing more interviews about it as an Oscar expert. And last year, I got to work the red carpet, so I did interviews on the red carpet and did the press room and just went from nominations to the nominees luncheon all the way to the big Oscar week. And, it's really kind of my Oscar nerd dream come true.
No, oh, sorry. For those of you, I'm sorry I'm coughing. Sundance got me. But it's really got to be very... it really does have to be kind of like a movie nerd dream come true, because you're there on the red carpet, and then there's Brad and Angelina, there's all these other people. You don't really see that as much at, like, if you're like myself who I attend a lot of film festivals. Occasionally you'll get a celebrity that's attached to a movie that's there, and but even then the access, even for press, is usually very, very limited. It must be very, very kind of fun. And at the same time, I would have to imagine there's some anxiety having to be on camera with these people. And have you ever freezed up on a question, or do you kind of have these prepared, in advance, or how does it go?
Yeah, you always have a couple questions in advance, and you always have your fallback questions that are kind of generic, and you can ask anyone. And especially on the Academy Awards night, the red carpet is so busy, and oftentimes you only get 1 or 2 questions if you're lucky. In terms of like seeing all the celebrities, it really is amazing, because you can do a premiere and it might be a Leonardo DiCaprio film, but it's not like, here's Jack Nicholson, here's Meryl Streep, here's Leonardo DiCaprio, here's Nicole Kidman. They're all in the same line. They're all like spaces apart. Mm-hmm. It's really overwhelming just as an avid theater goer and someone that just loves movies. And it's noisy too, and you get the bleachers all filled with fans, and you've got helicopters overhead, so there's a lot to sort of try and stay and be present and be in the moment with it. But I will tell you, the one thing that saved me last year was I had attended as a guest in 2007, so I was kind of aware of how overwhelming it was, and I knew to just kind of like take a deep breath, take a step back, and just do my job.
And yeah, I like how you've kind of, you really kind of frame that whole experience like that, and you kind of put some perspective into it, and you had an opportunity to kind of scope it out first. See, now I'm learning things because, maybe next time if I'm ever at an event like this or the Independent Spirit Awards or something like that, see, now you're schooling me so that I can be a proper host and ask questions, as opposed to just somebody on a little web show like FilmSnobbery Live. But
No, it's not a little show. It's your show.
It is my show. And speaking of people who get snubbed, let's just briefly touch upon the best actor, best actress categories. And I guess was there anyone in particular that you were like, wow, I am really shocked that they did not get nominated? Go.
I think when you really look at like what people were predicting in the best performance by an actor in a leading role, I think, Leonardo DiCaprio has been in the mix the whole time, as was Michael Fassbender, and the two of them did not make the list. Now, I think J. Edgar lost a lot of steam throughout the awards show season. It just wasn't a great film, and this wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio's finest role by any means. So,
no. And honestly,
it started to eclipse.
I blame that movie on the visual effects, to be honest with you. I did not like the makeup effects for J. Edgar specifically, and also was it Polson? I can't remember his name. J. Edgar's friend in the movie there, and by friend I mean more than friend, best friend, whatever you want to call it, confirmed bachelor. No,
Confirmed bachelor.
Yes. We're taking it back to Three's Company times. But yeah, I mean, I saw that movie as a special screening at the Napa Valley Film Festival in November. Right, I think it was the same weekend. It was only opening, I think, in like Los Angeles and maybe New York. And I got to tell you, the story I didn't hate. I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect it to be a love story. I really appreciated how Eastwood really crafted that movie, but I really was distracted by the cinematography and the visual effects. That I really didn't. It didn't sit well with me. It felt very uneven. I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, a lot of people talked about the fact that, the whole Leonardo DiCaprio aging effects and things like that. When it's distracting, it's taking away from the story. That's all you're focusing in on, and at that point, you're lost. I mean, they've lost you as an audience member, and what's the point?
Yeah.
And then you look at something like, you look at what Meryl Streep did in Iron Lady, and you look at Glenn Close and Albert Nobbs, and that was incredible makeup. It was incredible performance where they just, I just call Meryl Streep, she just was. She was just in the state of being. She was Margaret Thatcher. You didn't feel like, oh, this is Meryl Streep playing Margaret Thatcher. You just were watching Margaret Thatcher on the screen. And I thought the choices that Glenn Close made in Albert Nobbs, I thought were astounding, and I feel like in another year that would have been her Oscar, but I think Meryl and Viola Davis are going to be tough to beat in that category.
Now, it is funny because, a lot of people were talking about how they felt that Rooney Mara had kind of snubbed Tilda Swinton a bit. I like the fact that Rooney has is nominated for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But I think that it's almost like it's not that she's new. I mean, she's been around for a little bit now. She's done a few movies, definitely. But, I think some people, I think were mad because I think they feel Tilda's really she's put in the time, at this point. And I think a lot of people think that she is like the next Glenn Close or Meryl Streep. And for some of, the roles that she does. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Sure. I mean, I think Tilda Swinton is an incredible actress. I mean, every role that she steps into, she's another one that she is that character. You don't question, because you have to look at Tilda Swinton too. I mean, she is quirky, not only in personality but also in looks, and I love her androgynous look. I think it's fantastic.
It's very Bowie-esque.
I love watching her on screen. It doesn't distract me at all because she's such a good actress and she really can get into the character. I did say, though, I did a kind of a, Oscar nominee prediction show the night before on Monday, and I said, I don't think Tilda's going to get it. I think Rooney's going to sneak in there, and that was one of my accurate predictions. And I just feel like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo picked up enough steam late in the award show season, and that's where you start seeing that reflected in the Oscars because it is the last show of the official award season. And things sometimes change between, like, Golden Globes, SAG Awards, Critics' Choice, things like that.
And what would you think about, people who I think a lot of audience members would say, wow, those people have been overlooked for a while. And I would say in the Best Actor category, we're looking at Gary Oldman, and also in the Actress category, we were looking at Michelle Williams, who have both, they've been. Michelle, again, not as she hasn't been in the game as long as Gary Oldman, but her body of work has been astounding, and Gary Oldman is he's fracking Gary Oldman. So that man should have been nominated in every movie he's ever made, in my opinion. I've always enjoyed everything he's ever done. He's
a terrific actor, and sometimes you do get nominated for your body of work. Sometimes you win for your body of work. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes I think is unfortunate when sort of politics, overtake the actual performances. So I was glad to see Gary Oldman on that list. It did take it away from Michael Fassbender and Leonardo DiCaprio, and Demian Bashir was the other surprise nominee for A Better Life. In terms of Michelle Williams, this is her third nomination. She's going to win. She's going to win soon. I don't think that Joel is the one that's going to get her the statuette. And I'll tell you why. The movie itself was, My Week with Marilyn, I felt like it was an incomplete story overall. I thought her performance was wonderful, and I did feel like I was watching Marilyn Monroe on screen, and she's just such an incredible actress. And if people haven't seen Blue Valentine, or if you want to just even go back and take a look at her work in, I'm like, what's the cowboy movie?
Not Brokeback Mountain.
Brokeback Mountain, right. Yeah, Brokeback Mountain. I'm like, what's the cowboy movie? Brokeback Mountain. Like, go back and, look at how little dialogue she had in Brokeback Mountain, but how much she said in so few words.
Oh, no, absolutely. And it's funny, do you think that more people were upset that Rooney Mara probably, kind of took it over Tilda Swinton, or do you feel that, My Week with Marilyn, Michelle Williams, maybe? Do you think that, which one do you think people were probably more angsty about in terms of, placement?
I feel like Michelle's been a lock. Michelle, Viola, Glenn Close, and Meryl Streep have been locks for months now. I'm going to say at least 2 months in terms of an Oscar nomination. Mm-hmm. I feel like that fifth nomination where it was Tilda for most of the award season, I felt like she was kind of hanging on. No. And that's when, with the late push with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that's where Rooney was able to slip in and grab that fifth nomination. And
I just find it so it's just so funny because there really is, you kind of follow this, I would think, throughout the year. Obviously more pressing during the Oscar season. How political do you think a lot of these nominations are? When I start opening up the trades, so I start opening up Variety, Hollywood Reporter, I start even just other magazines, what is it, the Cinematographers Guild and the Producers Guild, all those kind of things, and you start seeing the for your considerations. How political, how much money does it take to buy an Oscar nomination? Because I would like to know, because I would love to just Oscar nominate my show. Let's do that.
Let's do it. I think the masters of it, Harvey Weinstein is the master of Oscar races. He and his company will spend millions of dollars, whatever it takes, to get his projects out there and in the press. Now, the interesting thing is that this year, now that the nominations have been announced, there are very, very tight rules on what Academy members can participate in. They can go to screenings, but the studios can't be dragging their stars all over the globe and having them do Q&As and go to parties and meet the Academy members. And sort of, maybe a little, sort of a bribe for a vote kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They've really locked down on that this year. So these rules are now in place, and what it does is level the playing field between the indies and the big budget films. So this is why I think it's great. I think it's great that they were able to do that.
It's funny because in terms of the indies versus the big budget, I mean, even the things that are, even the independent, excuse me, even the Independent Spirit Award nominations seem still completely out of the realm of what I would consider to be true independent film versus the Oscars. It's so weird that there's a, just how separate those worlds feel. Like even when I was at Sundance and Slamdance this past week, where really those worlds collide on many, many levels, it still felt like almost there was like the real independent filmmakers were like the Morlocks, hiding in the sewers, you know what I mean? And all the celebrities were basking in the daylight glow and, skiing and all that kind of stuff. It still feels so uneven in terms of treatment. And I understand, the award ceremonies are, I think it's a twofold thing. Obviously you want to congratulate people for a job well done. That part I have no problem with. I've never really enjoyed like the pageantry of it, and yourself speaking as an award winner. I mean, you were a 2-time award winner at this year's IAW TV Awards. First of all, tell the audience, what were you nominated for? What did you win?
Sure. We were nominated for 3 awards: Best Director in a Nonfiction Format, Best Host in a Taped Web Series, and
I'm gonna take that one away from you next year.
You're going to take it from me.
Yeah.
We're going to throw down, have a challenge.
No.
And the show was Best Hosted Taped Web Series. So we won the web series and the host. So we won 2 out of 3, which we were very pleased with.
Okay, congratulations for that, because I mean, this on any level is not easy, and I'm incredibly uncomfortable doing it. But I always appreciate people who do it really well, because I'm on those red carpets as well. Not the big prestigious ones like you are, but I'm at the festivals and all that, and that's all I've been doing for the past week or so, has been doing interviews and doing all these kind of red carpets and stuff like that. And I got to tell you, it takes, not only does it take a lot out of you, but it also takes a real quick mind to really kind of try to come up with the questions. I know you probably sandbag a few of them, but I've never really prepared anything because I don't want to be the guy who asks the same question as the 3 people behind me. So, how do you do that? I mean, when you're working at a celebrity level, I'm assuming you really just want to kind of, because of the time constraints, you really just want to kind of move them in and out. But, on any other level, how do you generally prepare?
I do a lot of research, and it probably comes with being a real school nerd growing up. I love studying, and I love doing papers, and this is sort of an odd extension of what I like to do as a kid. And it's important. It really is important to do your research and to try and find that little morsel or that little tidbit that you think, the bigger outlets are not going to ask. Ryan Seacrest isn't going to ask, or People, or Entertainment Tonight, because that's where you're going to get a lot more personality as a celebrities, because they'll think, oh, you did your research. Let me give you a good answer to this. But also gives you some good sound bites that people haven't heard before. And I think that is really important. You do have to be quick on your feet, because anything can happen. A lot of times you're filming live, and or streaming live over the internet. And celebrities have bad days too, and they can be nice and they can be not so nice, and you kind of have to roll with it and not be rude back. You just try and smile and be like, oh, someone's having a bad day. Just blow it off and move on to the next person.
Have you ever had a moment where you slipped, and like you were just like, maybe you were having a bad day too, and you were like, yeah, whatever, or like you just, maybe you were a little more curt than you meant to be, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I just did that.
Sometimes you sit there and go, oh, that sounded a little snarky.
Yes.
I had a real interesting, and it's out there on the internet so people can look for it, but I had a real interesting interview with Thomas Jane at the Saturn Awards earlier last year, and he's known for Hung, and he's a quirky guy to begin with, and he was like back and forth and in and out of the interview, and then talking to his publicist, and then coming back, and then like just kind of walking away mid-sentence. I was like, what the heck just happened? And I was a little sarcastic, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not sure what that interview was all about. So you can have unpredictable behavior too, which is, it makes it more fun, I think.
And you know him for Hung. For me, he's the Punisher. I really, I really enjoy him in that role. But no, it's such it's so weird, and it's nice to know that I love having that you on the show because you're a fellow masshole, if you will. And you're out there and you're in LA and you're doing so well, and I really want to congratulate you on all the success. And how were this year's IAW TV Awards versus last year's, let's say, Streamy Awards?
Yeah, the Streamies were actually in 2010, so it was it's been 2 years
That's
since the
right.
web community really came together. It's interesting. The Streamies in 2010 were tough because everyone was very excited about them. The build-up was huge. And a lot of people walked away disappointed just because people had brought parents and kids, and there was a lot of profanity and things that you just didn't necessarily expect. And I think we all appreciate edgy, and then there's a level where it just becomes inappropriate. And I think for many people, that's where the Streamy sort of turned that year. But I love that people sort of banded together and said, let's do something different. Let's, take a negative and make it a positive. And they did that with the IAW TV Awards. The Streamies are coming back this year. And you know what? It's not going to be what happened in 2010. So that's exciting, too, that, everyone loves a Hollywood comeback. And that's going to be the Streamy story for 2012.
And yourself as a working actress and correspondent and all that on both the web and traditional television, as those two mediums really start to merge, do you think that award shows like the IAW TV Awards, the Streamies, stuff like that, will ever start getting as mainstream a coverage as, say, like, the Oscars, the Golden Globes, or anything like that? I mean, do you think that eventually, or even eventually, do you think that will be swallowed up as internet, personalities will be swallowed up by something like the Academy Awards, or, maybe even I don't know, maybe there would be another big glitzy one that they would create specifically for the web, if the other, the IAW TV or the Streamies never, don't grow to that level. Do you think that we'll ever get there?
I think at some point we'll see a merging. I don't necessarily think things will be swallowed up per se. The Oscars are always going to be around and things like that. But I think you're seeing, like, I love seeing in, like, WGA Awards, which is the Writers Guild, I love seeing that they're honoring writing in web series and that they're really focusing in. And WGA is one of the best guilds in terms of really embracing what's happening with new media. So they obviously get it. SAG hasn't added any digital categories or anything like that. I wish they would take a look at it seriously because SAG New Media, which is a branch of that guild, is doing a wonderful job in trying to, get contracts out and get people working. So I think in time we will start seeing the bigger award shows at least honoring some of these categories.
And speaking of people who should be honored, going back to the Oscars for 2 seconds, the nominees, there are always a lot of categories that kind of get glossed over. I mean, everyone knows the best actors, best actress, best picture. A lot of people also will pay attention to things like the best, the score, music. Some people don't really follow things like editing or even like going underscore, sound editing. Is there any of those kind of, I don't want to call them secondary categories because that sounds demeaning, but the lesser known categories that you really pay attention to personally?
A couple of them actually. One of my favorites, and every year it's such an interesting category because it's really melding old traditions with new technology, and that's the makeup category. If anyone saw The Wolfman last year, Rick Baker, who did American Werewolf in London, he's the one that sort of pioneered all of these sort of special effects and makeup techniques. And he studied under Dick Smith, who was sort of king of all of those old movie makeup creations. But it's interesting to watch the evolution of all of that. I've been able to interview Rick Baker several times, and he talks about fighting with studios and saying, we want to do the natural progression in makeup and not how to do this all CGI because it also gives the actors the ability to transform. So I always find that fascinating and how he's been able to adapt and when he thinks CGI is appropriate and when it's not. So the makeup category is always really interesting, and the Academy always does a makeup symposium on the Saturday before the Oscars. You really get to see what the nominees did and created in their films. And the other category, and just because it's a personal favorite, documentaries, I just think are always really interesting.
I like documentaries as well, and it's funny because I think so many people consider most documentaries to be more of the indie fare. Like, you see a lot of documentaries at art houses. You don't always see them at the big multiplexes, but yet they're an Oscar-nominated category. Did you have a favorite documentary this year?
Pina, and that's about Pina Bausch, and I was astonished that it made it this far. Pina Bausch was a modern dancer and choreographer. She passed away a couple years ago. And they were able to do a whole beautiful, wonderful 3D documentary about her work. And it's the very first 3D documentary feature that's ever been nominated. So if anyone gets, if you're a dance fan, definitely go and take a look at it. But it's so rich and so beautiful, and it's just really visually stunning.
And we also had in that too, one that had gotten a lot of attention online, specifically Paradise Lost 3. Purgatory. Mm-hmm. Do you think that has a shot in hell when you also have things like Pina and Undefeated and Hell and Back Again? I mean, it looks like a very strong showing this year of documentaries. Do you think that the online audience is going to have enough clout to kind of, and people who are voting that are online, I guess, to make something like that work?
You gotta remember, the one thing about the Academy is the population, a lot of it is older. So you have to go with sometimes the more traditional fare, I always think. Mm-hmm. And Undefeated, it's got Harvey behind it again.
Right.
Harvey Weinstein, I'm like, you got money backing this one. So that's tough. That's tough to try and beat something like that. But the one interesting thing about the documentary category, too, this is the last year they are voting under these particular rules, where they have a committee go and, take a look and they watch all the films and then they nominate the documentaries. Next year, there's more stringent rules. Like, you can't, you have to play in legitimate movie theaters, not tiny little theaters outside of LA or outside of New York. You have to be reviewed by either the New York Times or the LA Times.
That part I don't like.
It's going to change it.
That I will say, that part I don't like. I was just recently on a film critics panel with critics from the LA Times and the New York Times and the Hollywood Reporter and I think it was also the San Francisco Chronicle and myself. It just seems that, I mean, I understand and I respect the tradition of those two papers and the long running there's a lot of respect due to those papers, but I feel that by leaving everybody else out, and I don't just mean online entities, whether like myself or other, I wouldn't want to do that because I don't cover mainstream film typically. But but leaving off, even like the big guys like Slash Film or Ain't It Cool News or something like that, or Latino Review, or but and then also in the other mainstream papers. I mean, the Chicago Sun. I mean, how could you let Ebert out of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does seem. I mean, to me, like, film criticism is Roger Ebert, especially in this day and age where it's changed tremendously. We don't have a lot of film review shows on TV anymore, but Siskel and Ebert, I mean, I remember as a kid watching them.
Yeah.
I do think that rule is a little bit odd. It's really designed, though, to weed out the hundreds of nominees or entries that they get. They're hoping to whittle that down. It's not a perfect system, and maybe they'll alter it a little bit, but Michael Moore was one of the people that really helped make this change happen. Mm-hmm. And you think of documentary films, at least mainstream documentary films, I think most people would know who Michael Moore is.
It's basically, when you think of mainstream documentary films, you think of Michael Moore and Ken Burns. Maybe if you
Morgan Spurlock a little bit to that, because I think a lot of people have seen Super Size Me.
Yep, Morgan Spurlock. Maybe if you're more classical about it, maybe Wiseman or Maisels. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I agree with you. I think Michael Moore is the prototypical documentarian of this generation. It's or at the very least, he's been very good about and very vocal about his movies, so that has helped consistently throughout his career. So I want to know for our audience what else you're going to be doing leading up to this year's Oscars.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'll be doing a whole weekly series breaking down some of the categories. Mm-hmm. So everyone can look forward to all of that if you're interested in. And I'll try and go to some of the smaller categories too, not just the big actors, best picture. We'll look at some of the other categories, music and cinematography and things like that. Oscars week is just this crazy week of covering the red carpet and the setup of the awards, taking a look at the governor's ball, the food that Wolfgang Puck is going to cook, and I'm going to be doing the makeup symposium and taking a look at some of the smaller categories again, and also the documentary shorts and some of those features, the animated shorts that don't necessarily get the buzz that all the other bigger categories get. The Academy does some nice evenings with the nominees and Q&A and interviews and things like that, and I'll also take a look at the foreign film category.
Excellent. And I believe that we'll be actually showing your week one Oscar coverage here on Film Snobbery Live. This interview, not Film Snobbery Live, I'm sorry, it'll be part of our I don't know how to say it. You're acting as a correspondent, and you just happen to throw a Film Snobbery shout out there. So that will be out on the net. That's how we're going to phrase that, I guess.
Yeah. And I'll be taping some more on Saturday, so there'll be a fresh one each week that everyone can take a look at as we get closer to February 26th.
And we look forward to showing that to our audience too. And as much as we cover independent film, I think it's really important to showcase occasionally what goes on in Hollywood, because at the end of the day, I mean, as you grow as a filmmaker, it's important to kind of know how these things work, because I think a lot of that is about networking and presentation, marketing, and money to a point.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
It's a wonderful tradition in history of the Oscars, because I mean, I don't think anyone in any town or any city would say, I don't want to win an Oscar. Of course you want to win an Oscar.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
And so I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I do want to say thank you again for coming on the show and just kind of discussing a few of the finer points of this year's Academy Award nominees. I'm so happy to have you on, and I'm so happy to also hear that you won the IAW TV Awards. I've been a fan of your work for a while, so it's really nice to be able to have that exchange with you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure, and I love just talking. So anytime.
Thank you very much, Kristyn. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Kristyn Burtt, and we will be right back with another contest, or a contest here on Film Snobbery Live, a big one that actually ties into the Oscars, as well as a little bit of Sundance Slam Dance news. We're going to kind of give you a little bit of a wrap-up on my time out in Park City. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we're back. How about them apples? So I want to thank the wonderful and talented Miss Kristyn Burtt, who, for coming on the show, sharing all that information. I know we don't generally cover the Oscars, and it was a bit long, but I really thought there was some really worthwhile information on there, both kind of behind the scenes, and it's always fun to discuss, the politics of making film when you get to that level as well. Right now, what we've got on the rest of the show, we're going to hold off a little bit on some more of our Sundance coverage. We've obviously, if anyone wants to read more about what we've already written, you can go to filmsnobbery.com/blog. We've got 5 days worth of coverage there that you can check out. But we do have a contest, and this was definitely something I wanted to get out. We did run a little long tonight. I apologize. But this contest is big. It's actually probably the best prize I think that Film Snobbery has ever given out, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think the best prize was the DVD copy of Stuck Like Chuck that we failed to give out because no one entered.
See, why you gotta rain on my parade like that, sir? Right, yeah. So anyway, this is what I believe to be the best prize that Film Snobbery has ever given out. We've given out tons of software, thousands of dollars worth of stuff, but I think this is one of the cooler things, and it's very timely as well. We have a poster that we're giving out, courtesy of the good folks at ArcLight Cinemas. Follow them on Twitter, twitter.com/ArcLight Cinemas, and or ArcLight Cinema, one of those two. Search for them. One of those will work. Anyway, they gave us a poster. It is autographed by someone that we have mentioned in tonight's show, in the Oscar area part of the show when we were discussing the Oscars. So that's pretty cool. The question is who was it? And I'm going to leave it up to you to answer that question on either our Twitter or Facebook. You can answer at twitter.com/filmsnobbery, or you can answer on Facebook.com/FilmSnobbery, and we'll have the question up there so you can just put the comment on it. The question is, what actor is this poster autographed by that we're giving away? Who's the actor? That's what I want to know. Yeah. So there. That's it. Answer it correctly, you'll get an autographed poster, and it's a really great poster. I'm so psyched. I want to again thank the good people at ArcLight.
You wish you could keep it to yourself.
I really do. It's a great fucking poster. So that being said, I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. I apologize that A, we ran late, and B, that we don't have more to talk about. We really do, but I am fading fast, folks. Sundance really just kind of took it all out of me. I'm not going to lie, with the travel, the jet lag, and I was up very early this morning getting things working and ready and starting to get all of my footage edited and everything, so, and my life back in order. So, but here's the cool thing. February 2nd, Chris Gore will be on the show. At least that's what I've heard. Chris Gore will be on the show. We're going to talk about Fetishville. We're going to talk about his latest crowdfunding project, which actually was for Fetishville, but we're going to talk about that as Fetishville as well. And that's going to be cool. So yeah, G4's host, Chris Gore, Film Threat founder, Chris Gore, tying it all back together, is going to be on the show. I'm really, really pleased about that. It's I literally have his book right here, Chris Gore's Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, Volume 4, I believe, 4th edition. Yep.
Put that right out of the TV screen.
I totally had it like right in front of me. That totally wasn't even planned. Anyway, so yeah, folks, that's the deal. We're gonna have Chris on next week, and we're going to we got a contest. Make sure you enter, and we've got Jerry, and we got me, and I'm back, and I'll be in New York on the 30th and the 31st attending a premiere of Things I Don't Understand by David Spaltro at the Sunshine, and I will also be at the launch and birthday party of the Ginger Girls movie, director Alexia Anastasio at, I can't remember the name of the place. It's in New York. It's a candy
Give out the name,
factory.
people show up.
I want people to show up because they can't crash because you got to pay to get in.
Oh.
See, that's the thing. But the cool thing is that all the money you give when you show up goes towards the film, because it's a film launch party. It's not premiere. It's a launch party. They're just launching the project for the movie, getting it up and running, launching principal photography, production, all that kind of stuff. So make sure that you guys check that out. It's Dylan's Candy Bar. That's what it is. Dylan's Candy Bar, and I think it's on like 6th or 7th Avenue or something like that. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Just check out Alexia Anastasio on Facebook or Twitter, and you can get all the details about it there. It's for her new movie documentary, Ginger Girls. Either way, I'll be in New York. So if you run into me, there I'll be.
They're only going because you heard the word candy bar.
That's absolutely true. But I want to say thank you to everyone for coming on the show tonight. I want to say I am exhausted. I'm going to bed, and this episode archive should be up in the next 24 hours. So we'll look forward to your entries for the contest, and we'll see you next Thursday. Have a great night.